Well, good morning, everybody, or evening, or afternoon, or whenever you're listening to this. But welcome to the Bible in a Year 2021. And we are on day 134 on this journey. And we're going to be looking at Psalms 32, 51, 86, and 122. So it shouldn't surprise us that we're following up on what David did with Bathsheba and Uriah. Now we're going to get to look at his heart. We saw what happened in the actions. We're well aware of that, but now in this moment with the Psalms, we get to see into his thinking and into his heart and into his reaction. And what we see here is some pretty classic things that happen when we rebel against God. And we see here in Psalms 32, verses 3-4, there's that pain of guilt. And this is when you have a real honest relationship, when you have an intimate relationship with him. And David describes it: when I kept quiet, my bones wore out. I was groaning all day long, every day, every night, because your hand was heavy upon me. My energy was sapped as if in a summer drought. So when we read the account in 2 Samuel and in 1 Chronicles, we don't get the impression that David was bothered at all by what he had done. But we see here that he was, that it was weighing very heavy upon him, that he was sick, having difficulty sleeping, and the weight of the guilt on him, he was finding just unbearable. It's interesting the way he puts it here. As we look at verse 5, he says, "So I admitted my sin to you." Wow, it was more like Yahweh confronted him. Nathan came in and told David exactly what he did. So David had a choice that he could either lie or he could admit it. And so that's what's here. So I admitted my sin to you. So it's not like I came to you and confessed my sin. I told you something you didn't know, but instead I admitted. You confronted me. I admitted my sin to you. I didn't conceal my guilt. I'll confess my sins to the Lord, is what I said. Then you remove the guilt of my sin. And that's a pretty amazing thing right there. Then you remove the guilt of my sin. There was no offerings presented. There was nothing of the sort. Yahweh let David know that there'd be consequences long-term, and there's going to be a short-term price that's going to have to be paid for his actions. But yeah, surprising, no sacrifices were being offered up as sin was being removed. Then Yahweh speaks to David in the psalm, and you might get confused, but it switches. The voice switches from David to Yahweh, and Yahweh makes it very clear to David what he's supposed to do now. And he says, "I will instruct you and teach you about the direction you should go. I'll advise you and keep my eye on you. Don't be like some senseless horse or mule whose movement must be controlled with a bit and a bridle. Don't be anything like that." So what Yahweh wants from David is, and from all of us, is that we'll voluntarily obey him. He's not into forcing us to do anything. He gives us his instructions because those are the best. That's the best thing for us. His instructions, there's nothing better than his instructions. That's the way that he has made things to function. And when we follow his instructions, we go smoothly into the future. But he doesn't want force. He's not interested in that being forced. He wants us to do that because we know it's the best thing to do. It's the right thing. So that's what he's saying to David, that he doesn't want to use bit and bridle on him. So voluntarily do what I instruct you to do. Then we go over to, well, not over. I want to go back to the beginning of Psalm 32, because now we can appreciate it. We might not be able to appreciate it as much when we read it just from the beginning, but go back and review now, verse 1 and 2. David, in David's voice, is saying, the one whose wrongdoing is forgiven, whose sin is covered over, is truly happy. The one the Lord doesn't consider guilty, in whose spirit there is no dishonesty, that one is truly happy. And that should be our state of being because of what the Lord has done for us. David did not deserve forgiveness, and he received it. It's exactly what the Father has done for us through the Son. Now, this is the famous psalm, and I don't want to go into every detail on this because you've probably heard it preached on many different times. If this is your first time through this, then drink this one in. We see here in verse 1 to 2 that David, as he's crying out to Yahweh, is not relying on his own goodness or on his works or anything of the sort. He is calling upon the faithful love of Yahweh. He's trusting the faithful love of Yahweh. Have mercy on me, God, according to your faithful love. According to your faithful love. Wipe away my wrongdoings according to your great compassion. Wash me completely, clean of my guilt, purify me from my sin, not because I deserve it, but according to your faithful love. That's the part we fall down on, I think, more often than not, is that we think we have to pay him off. We have to make promises. We have to do some good deeds. There's some sort of penance that we have to pay. And we could never, ever, be good enough to pay penance for the things that we've done against our Father. But because of his faithful love, it's because of his faithful love that we are completely clean of guilt and we've been purified from our sins. Just amazing. We see here something similar in verse 7 and 10. This is David's desire. He's expressing the desire to be clean, to have that sense of being clean. And we saw in the previous psalm where he's feeling that weight of guilt, and he just wants now to experience that cleansing. So in verse 7, purify me with hyssop, and I will be clean. Wash me, and I will be whiter than snow. And then in verse 10, create a clean heart for me, God. Put a new faithful spirit inside me. So David wants to be clean. He wants to be renewed. He wants to be restored. He wants to be brought back to that place. I don't think we ever really come back to that exact same place, but he does restore us to him. Yeah. And as David goes forward, he has a lot more difficulties, a lot more things. The shine is kind of gone off, and he's going to be facing a lot of stuff now. Psalm 86. Again, let's go with this understanding, this theme here. David has based all of his requests on who Yahweh is. Not anything about what he merits, not anything that he deserves, not anything that he's earned. It's all about who Yahweh is. Verse 4 and 5 of Psalm 86, make your servant's life happy again, because, my Lord, I offer my life to you. Because, my Lord, you are good and forgiving, full of faithful love for all those who cry out to you. Can we get that vision and understanding? We see here in verse 11, this is a Moses request, is how I put it. Moses says, show me your ways and that I may know you. And here we have David, teach me your way, Lord, so that I can walk in your truth. Make my heart focused only on honoring your name. And how many of us have been in that place where we want the Lord, to just limit, to block things out, to do all this sort of stuff. And in maturing faith, growing in our faith is actually us learning how to do that, us learning how to focus our hearts, us learning how to block things out, us learning how to let go of things that really have no value whatsoever. And that happens with time. It is a good desire to express, but it is something that we gain in maturity. Keep clicking on the wrong thing here. So in verse 12 to 13, again, because of your faithful love here, he says in verse 12, 13, I give thanks to you, my Lord, my God, with all my heart, and I will glorify your name forever because your faithful love toward me is awesome. Yeah, why are we going to gather in on Sunday? Because we're celebrating his faithful love always. That's the reason we get together, celebrating his faithful love. And because you rescued my life from the lowest part of hell. Can't we all just testify to that? Can't we all just come in on Sunday and turn to each other and say, I'm here to glorify the name of the Lord forever because of his faithful love toward me. It's awesome. And because he rescued my life from the lowest part of hell. Verse 15, what David has experienced with Yahweh, but you, my Lord, are a God of compassion and mercy. You are very patient and full of faithful love. Yeah, we have to share a testimony. We do. That's so very important. And some people are going to grab hold of that testimony and they're going to claim that for themselves. And that's awesome. There's others who are going to know about it. They're going to hear it, but it's not going to be real to them. It's not something that they're going to be able to grab hold of. But in the moment, in the desperation, they will remember the testimony and they will call out to God because they've heard that God is compassionate and merciful, that he's very patient and that he's full of faithful love. They've heard that and they call out to him and then they experience it themselves. So don't be discouraged when people don't seem to be as excited about your testimony as you are. You're planting seeds for when they face things in the future. And then Psalm 122, verse 1 to 2. There's no excuse for David's behavior. We can't, like, he raped a woman. You just can't excuse that. You can't come up with any rationale or it's just nothing. It doesn't matter what David was going through. That was just, can't excuse it. That was just terrible. And he murdered her husband to try to cover it up. And that's just a whole other degree of depravity. It really is. But there's no denying David's heart. There's no denying who gives David joy. And I think that's why his behavior, if David was a rotten king, if he didn't love the Lord and he did this, it would still be terrible, but I don't think it would shock us as much as it does the David doing this. But in this whole story, the story really isn't about David here. The story is about Father's justice, because he gives justice, Father's love, Father's compassion, his mercy. That's what the story is about. That's what's revealed to us in this thing. We hear David say, I rejoiced with those who said to me, let's go to the Lord's house. Now our feet are standing in your gates, Jerusalem. And that's who David is. What he did isn't normally who he is, and we have no idea what brought him to that, but it was just wrong decisions, wrong actions, unexcusable. Just, we cannot come up with ways to excuse that. We can't. So just like the prodigal son's story isn't about the son, it's about the Father's love and the forgiveness. We put the wrong titles on these things. about who he is and how forgiving he is. That's what this whole story about David, Bathsheba, Uriah is all about, is about Father's justice, his love, his mercy. So thank you very much for joining with me today. And I pray that you have an excellent day. And let's get our energy renewed, shall we? And enter in with such gusto and passion. I pray that there will be a time of renewing for you in this day, a time of rest, a time of just walking beside those quiet waters and laying down in that meadow that he provides for us. It's always there. We just need to step in. So be blessed, be encouraged in your day, and I will see you tomorrow. God bless.